awesome and well. There's a few of the regulars jumping on nice and quick. Great to see you guys, as always. Alison, Brendan. Fantastic to see you this morning. What is it? The 5th of August. Welcome to Wealth Coffee Chat, 5th of August. Team gang. Wherever you are. Dino, double shot on the coffees. Wherever you are, hopefully you're awesome, happy and well. A few shout outs to the regulars. Mama Sharon. Sharon, good morning, Sharon. Chris, James. Perfect. All right, well, let's get into this today. Welcome, team. Welcome, crew. Good to see the regulars back. Assad, James, a few jumping on now. Welcome to anyone who's new. If you're new, give us a shout out in the chat. A couple of people who were new yesterday. Great to have a few extra people joining us on the stream each morning. Get together with some crazy crew who are passionate about real estate investing, going the distance. This thing's a marathon, not a sprint, as you guys know. Andrew, Nadine, good morning. And we talk about the things that matter when it comes to the ideas and building our property portfolio, making sure we stick with it and absorb the right info so we can feel confident as we go forward. If you're new, Jason Witten's my name, if you don't already know that, and been property investing over 20 years and coaching property investors over 18 across Australia and New Zealand. So welcome if you're new, and awesome to see, as I said before, the regulars back here as well. Hey, today I wanted to dive in. I'm going to go do some training with my crew, my team in a minute. But I thought I'd quickly catch up with you guys, as I always do, for a Wealth Coffee Chat. And I want to talk about people on the move. Australia has had some interesting times, has had the whole world right now. And what are people doing? Oh, is the volume low? Oh, hey, Andrew, good work, man. How's that now? Hopefully you guys hadn't turned your volume up at your end and now I'm blowing your ears out. Anyway, all right, well, there we go. Good. We're back on track. Thanks for the shout out, Andrew. There's so many bits and pieces when we're doing this live streaming. Yeah. But good you guys to stick with it. So, awesome. Sounds better. Anyway, there you go. But, yeah, listen, 74,000 people. 74,000 people in the last 12 months have moved out of Melbourne and Sydney alone, and moved out of Sydney and Melbourne alone and moved to somewhere else. So what I thought I'd talk about today is where are those gains, where are those moves, where I think they're going to be permanent and where I think they're going to be not so permanent. And let's have a bit of a chat about that. But team, where do you reckon the majority of these moves have, it might surprise you, where do you think the majority of these moves have occurred? 34,000 movers, peoples, in Melbourne, 34,000 in Melbourne, 39,000 in Sydney. Where do you think they've gone, gang? Chuck it in the chat. There you go. Yeah, well, there you go. Well, Dean, I think Dean's all over it. Dean nailed it today. So have a look at this one. And it's not surprising. Somewhere warmer, than Melbourne. Yeah. Well, you might be right about that one. That's interesting, isn't it? But have a look at this, team. What we're seeing right now, is that that there's been an interesting maneuver, an interesting shift. But if you have a look at where people have gone, a lot of people have moved locally. Now, the net gain in Brisbane has been significant because if you have a look at the combination of Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney, and also the rest of Queensland into Brisbane, Brisbane's had a pretty significant net gain of 16,000 people. So that's pretty good. Up and down the southeast, in the southeast corner of Queensland, that's a pretty significant increase in population. And certainly, as a few of you guys sort of said in here, they're coming to Brisbane, southeast Queensland, and soaking up the supply. Brendan was saying that there. The supply is low. The supply wasn't ready for another 16,000 people to influx into Brisbane or southeast Queensland. So it's quite interesting. But the ones I wanted to talk about today. So number one, what's going to be permanent? I think the Queensland movers. I think the Queensland-Brisbane movers team, gang, are going to be permanent. I think these residents are going to stay. I think they're going to enjoy living in Queensland. I think they're going to set up their houses, their lives, their jobs, their incomes, their businesses, and they're going to operate from a new place. And I think 90% of those people will stay. And that's great. That's great for Brisbane. That's why in our pick right now, Brisbane's number one city in the country for us. From an investment point of view, it's 50% cheaper, right? It's 50% cheaper than Sydney, team. Brisbane is 50% cheaper than Sydney. And when you come down to Melbourne, it is 30% cheaper than Melbourne. So you think about that, team. You think about that. A lifestyle, setting up schools. Like, I know a friend of ours, I convinced him to move from Sydney. He had 4 boys, and he sent his 4 boys to the Gold Coast, best private school up here. Tim, I think a few went to Canberra, but not too many, man. Yeah. It's not on the migration, the internal migration list, is it? People go, you know what? I'm going to have a better lifestyle. I'm going to move to Canberra. Well, it's a nice spot, Canberra. Nice city, but I'm not quite sure it compares with, let's say, the Gold Coast or Noosa or Brisbane or Byron Bay. But there you go. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think Pritesh, some of them might have went to Lake Weirdo. Let's you never know. But yeah, I was telling a story. Oh, that's right. My good mate, he moved to Queensland, so he could send his 4 boys to a private school for the price of 1.5 of his boys in Sydney. So, and, he had a $3 million house in Sydney, and he moved to the Gold Coast, bought $1 million house, and it was better. So there's some arbitrage. There's a gap in lifestyle, everybody. It's attractive, and I think it will stay. I think the Queensland move will stay. Team, I think the ones that are going to come back, and I don't know where they've particularly gone, but I believe these ones that have moved in Victoria to the country towns, I think for the most part, I think we'll see 80% of those people return to the cities. That's what I believe. And the same for maybe Sydney. I'm going to say between 50 and 60%. Because the ones in Sydney, a lot of them are moving to the Central Coast or the Hunter Valley or some of those very close bits of infrastructure when it comes to population and density and places, team. But this is the one to watch for me. I think we will get 90% of those people stay. And I think over the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, excuse me, we're going to get a continuous run of that. Now, I'm quite surprised. I was quite surprised by these numbers that stayed local to those cities. I believe that those local country people or country moves will go back to the city eventually for career and job and other reason purposes. Only because I grew up in a country town, everybody, in North Queensland. And I don't know about you, it sounds romantic living in a country town. You're like, oh, wonderful. But it's not as good as it might sound. Certainly when, you're thinking about the quality of food and entertainment and fun and access to infrastructure and schools and shopping when it comes to cities. I think a lot of those people, after the pandemic issues wash over, I think they're going to look to come back to the cities. That's my call. What does that mean, team? What does that mean? Here's a few things that we all need to know right now that's going on. Number one, we have low interest rates, and that's going to be for a long time. I think that's going to be at least for 5 to 10 years, a low interest rate environment. That's, and I'm talking sub 5%, team. I don't know. Back in my day, type it in the chat, gang. My first interest rate was 11% for my first investment property. Now, I wasn't buying properties back when it was way more than that. Chuck it in the chat if you've got any experience of a higher interest rate that you've paid for your home or your investment property. Because under 5%, team, is absolutely amazing interest rates for a long time. That's going to stay there. It's not going to go above 5% in the next decade. So I think that's going to be pretty low. All right. We have now the lowest supply. Okay. Supply is massively undersupplied. Massive under. There you go. Deborah, 18. Sharon, 17. Oh, crikey. Sonia started at 7.5, went as high as 17. Wow. And we're probably, what are we at now, crew? Some of us can even have even got interest rates under 2%. Unreal, huh? Unreal. So we've got low interest rate environment. We've got a massive undersupply. Like we have right now, team, APRA, I've said this 100 times, APRA absolutely poleaxed the supply chain. We haven't seen anything yet, right? Supply, new properties coming to market have been just poleaxed, okay? And it's local buyers right now. We don't have any overseas migration or immigration, I think it's called, migration. So we don't have any overseas people entering the country. So our population's sort of flat or stagnating for the moment, but that will be temporary. Okay, that'll be temporary as we go, and we're going to see cost rise. Okay, costs of real estate certainly rise. So we've got some things going in our favour. We have a look at somewhere like Brisbane, which has got the Olympics, which is 50% cheaper than everywhere else. A lot of people are moving there from the main cities, and they will stay there. That's why we give Brisbane the number one thumbs up from our point of view. And then we have a look at these pressures right now for us as property investors. We're going to be in a fairly good environment as an investor for a while. And one thing, though, we used to say 5% rent was normal. Okay, we're going to settle at about 4% rent as a yield is normal now because the interest rates are so low. Your rents will continue to rise over time, but there's not enough interest rate pressure on those rents just yet in some places to get them up as we go. Yep. Costs are rising, already happening. Yeah, and it does. It sucks for locals who sort of sometimes are a little bit off the pace, to be honest. Candace, when we're sort of sitting here going, no, back in my day, this had never happened, and then it happens. But there you go. So, gang, I just wanted to touch base on that one and have a look at this. The little secret, not little secret, but the thing to keep an eye on will be when the borders are open, and that may be a couple of years yet, when the Australian government says, listen, we've got to get back to business, we've got to get back to normal. We need to have people entering the country. Our natural population growth is not good enough. And you wait, there'll be 100, 200, 300,000 people entering Australia with money, and they'll need places to buy and live and rent. And team, make sure you're in place for that. Like, that's why I'm like big and bullish on, certainly Brisbane and Southeast Queensland. I'm very bullish on Melbourne. I think it's the counter-cycle idea of Melbourne where it comes to, there's certainly positional buying down there that you just, COVID has restricted with the lockdowns in Melbourne. It's really held Melbourne back a bit, where the rest of the country hasn't really been affected like Melbourne as of yet in that way. But there you go, team. Anyway, hopefully it makes sense. that was just a quick chat this morning about where are all the people gone? And they haven't gone too far. They're staying close to those cities, the majority of them, and they're going to come back as far as I'm concerned. That's my call. But for the moment, we can take advantage of this stuff in Queensland. Team, there you go. All right, that's about it. That's it from me. Coffee chat done. Hopefully you guys are awesome and well. For those who joined us after the intro, be good. Join me tomorrow for another Wealth Coffee Chat around about the same time. About 8:05 usually. We'll do it again tomorrow. And tomorrow's Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, but I'll tell you all about that tomorrow. All right, gang. I got to go. I'm sure you do too. But awesome to hang out. Thanks for joining me, as always. Till I see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye for now.